She never wore camo, just a plain green windbreaker, cargo pants, and a faded ball cap with no logo, no rank, no unit patch, nothing to prove. The only thing sharp about her was the way she moved. Some thought she was just another retiree spending her pension on ammo. Her name on the range log was Marks. No first name, no rank. She signed in early 6:40 a.m., 15 minutes before open. Always the first one there, always lane 12, farthest from the speakers, nearest the wind. She didn't talk, not to the staff, not to the regulars. Just a nod, a quiet walk, and a thermos that looked like it had been through 3 lifetimes. Most figured she was just a quiet grandma with a weird hobby. Until she started shooting. There was no warm-up, no loud clacks or cinematic racking of slides. Just the calm clink of brass and a rhythm that made grown men stop mid-reload. Tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap. Adjust. Each shot tighter than the last. By the time the weekend crowd rolled in, her target looked less like paper and more like a single, ragged hole. That day, a group of Army ROTC cadets came in for quals. Loud, cocky, new gear, new boots, fresh patches. The kind of confidence that came from instruction manuals, not experience. One of them, a sergeant candidate named Dawson, noticed her. Not because she was flashy, but because she wasn't. "Yo, check out Grandma Rambo," one of the guys whispered. "Somebody's been watching too much Top Gun reruns." They laughed, until she shifted her stance. Dawson went quiet. He'd seen that stance before, on instructors who didn't need to speak to be obeyed. He watched as she loaded her magazine, slow and smooth, then brought the rifle to her shoulder with the kind of muscle memory you can't fake. The grouping was surgical. Tap, tap, reset, tap. Then the flash. A fresh casing spun and hit the floor by Dawson's boot. He picked it up. 308, black tip, hand-loaded. And on her forearm, just barely visible below the rolled cuff, was something that made the blood drain from his face. A tattoo, barely an inch wide, faded, inked with precision, not flare. The trident was there, but not navy. Above it, a line of numbers. Below it, a small globe and anchor. He'd seen it once before. In a photo his gunnery sergeant had shown him from the archives of 1st Marine Recon. The Ghosts, they were called. The ones who went in before anyone else even knew there was a war coming. And now here one was, next to him, with a travel mug and a paper target. The cadence of her fire didn't change. Even as Dawson stood there frozen, trying to make sense of what he'd just seen, Shiloh Marks kept firing. 5 rounds, 3 resets, every shot a whisper of the past, speaking through steel and powder. Dawson's buddies were still joking around, still talking trash about each other's groupings, but he wasn't listening. He was watching the way her elbow tucked, the way her cheek met the stock, the way her finger squeezed, not pulled, squeezed, at just the right breath. He wasn't a greenhorn. He'd trained under sharp shooters, had read every manual, shot hundreds of rounds. But this was different. He stepped toward her, hesitantly. "Ma'am," he started, "sorry to bother you, but that ink on your forearm, that's 1st Recon, isn't it?" She didn't answer, didn't stop, didn't blink. Just squeezed off one more round. Then, without looking at him, she spoke. Was, one word, flat, final, and yet not dismissive, just true. Dawson took a step back. "My CO told us about your unit," he said, voice quieter now. "4Con, right? 1st Recon, Vietnam-era template. You guys weren't just ghosts, you were shadows." Still no eye contact. But the firing paused. Shiloh lowered the rifle. She didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Then she exhaled, just loud enough to be heard. 4Con wasn't about ghosting, she said. It was about getting the job done before ghosts were even needed. Then she reloaded, calm, mechanical, efficient. Dawson stood still. He didn't know what to say. He hadn't expected a story, but what he got instead hit harder. I read about an op, he tried again. 98, Kosovo border. 3 recon Marines went missing. 1 came back. That you? She finally looked at him. Not soft, not angry, just steady. Some stories don't need to be told, she said. They just need someone who remembers how to listen. Dawson nodded, swallowed hard, then stepped back. She fired again. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of a legend unrolling itself in brass and breath. The rest of the morning moved in fragments. Dawson hadn't said much to his team after stepping back, just a quiet, half-whispered, "Don't mess with her," that got some sideways looks. A few of the guys laughed. One made a joke about the boomer sniper movie they were apparently living in. But not Dawson. He stayed focused, watched her, tried to copy her tempo. He couldn't. Shiloh's form was effortless, not showy, not tight like a recruit fresh out of boot. It was lived in, burned in, the kind of muscle memory you only earn with decades of repetition and survival. And someone else noticed. It wasn't just Dawson anymore. The range safety officer, Mitch, a former infantryman himself, had been watching from the corner since the moment the first casing hit the floor. He didn't interrupt, just leaned against the wall with his arms crossed, head slightly tilted, like he was watching a documentary come to life. After her third string of fire, Shiloh paused to check her grouping. No drama, no head tilt, just a glance, a small nod, and a slow step back. Mitch spoke first. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "you ever teach?" She glanced at him, eyes unreadable, behind those scratched sunglasses. "I've taught enough," she said. Then she returned to her bench. That was her way of saying no without closing the door completely. Mitch just nodded. "Figured," he said, more to himself than to her. Behind them, Dawson's teammates had finally started to quiet down. Not out of reverence, yet, but because the vibe had shifted. The normal range banter had given way to something else. Respect, maybe. Curiosity, definitely. That's when Petty showed up. Petty wasn't in the ROTC program. He was a private security guy, ex-airborne, still in shape, still loud, still cocky. He came in late, music in his earbuds, talking on the phone, laughing about some story he was telling too loud for anyone to ignore. He took the lane 2 spots down from Shiloh and started loading mags like he was on a Netflix special. Slammed the bolt forward, racked it fast. Fired 3 times in a row, too fast, groupings wide. Then again, still wide. Shiloh didn't even glance his way, but Petty glanced hers, and that's when he made the mistake. "Nice to see the AARP's still recruiting," he said, laughing to himself as he yanked his earbud out. Dawson winced. Shiloh didn't flinch. She didn't turn. She didn't even break her posture. She just inserted a fresh mag, pulled the bolt back, and sent 5 rounds into her target, center mass, nearly same hole. Then she paused, tilted her head, adjusted one dial on her scope, and sent the 6th shot straight through the tiny red dot she'd made with the 5th. The sound it made wasn't loud, but the silence afterward was deafening. Even Petty stopped. Shiloh lowered the rifle, looked downrange once, then started disassembling the weapon for cleaning. Petty cleared his throat. "That's a nice group," he offered. She looked at him once, that was all. It was the kind of look that makes you realize just how much danger can live behind stillness. She went back to cleaning. Mitch leaned over to Petty and said without moving his lips, "You just chirped at a recon sniper, dumbass." Petty blinked. "Marine Recon?" "Not just recon," Dawson muttered from behind him. "Foricon, woman's a ghost." Petty didn't have anything else to say after that. Morning, something changed. It wasn't official. Nobody put up a sign. Nobody made an announcement. But the next time Shiloh Marks walked through the doors of that range, every regular, staff, shooter, and even the kid who sold jerky at the little front counter stood a little straighter. She still didn't say much, didn't need to. The quiet that followed her in said everything. She walked the same path, same windbreaker, same cargo pants, same hat, its color now a debate among the staff. Some swore it had once been black, others said navy. Shiloh never corrected anyone. What she did correct, without a single word, was posture. 3 younger guys had already claimed the back bench, laughing over some YouTube gun test, when she stepped through the door. They looked up, saw her, and without even realizing why, slid over to make space. She nodded, sat down, unzipped her bag, same battered thermos, same ragged pistol sleeve, no frills. Lane 12 was hers. Mitch had quietly made sure of that. No reserve sign, just a red chalk mark on the wooden divider, easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. But everyone did now. They looked, they noticed, and Shiloh noticed them noticing. She set up like always, clipped her paper target, pinned it low, almost stubbornly below eye level, adjusted her sandbag, clicked her optic into place, then settled her cheek to the stock like she'd done it 1,000 times on 1,000 different hills. Because she had. Dawson was already there, this time on lane 10, quiet, watching, but not too closely. Just close enough to learn. He was still a student, he knew it. And to her credit, Shiloh didn't push him away. She just didn't invite him closer. It was Petty who broke the silence again, though this time with restraint. He walked over slowly, hands empty, a sealed box of .308 in one palm. "Brought some extra," he said, holding it out like an offering. Shiloh looked at the box, then at him. Then, to everyone's surprise, she took it. "Thank you," she said, quietly but clearly. That one phrase sent a ripple through the range. Mitch, watching from the far wall, shook his head and muttered to himself, "Petty got spoken to. That's rarer than a unicorn riding a Harley." Petty stood there for a second, like he didn't know whether to salute or walk away. In the end, he just nodded and returned to his lane. The session went on like that, quiet, focused, almost reverent, a kind of church but with brass and recoil instead of stained glass and hymns. When she shot, people stopped to listen. They didn't crowd her. They just paused. Something about the weight of her presence made even the most tactical of bros slow down and shut up, as if every shot she took was saying what the rest of them couldn't. At one point, a new guy walked in, loud, unaware, took a lane 2 spots over, and started yapping about ballistics to nobody in particular. Mid-rant, he looked left, saw her, and paused. "Who's Grandma?" he whispered to a guy nearby. The man didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the chalk mark, lane 12. The new guy frowned. "What, like VIP?" "Something like that," came the reply. "That's Shiloh Marks." The name meant nothing to him until he watched. Until he saw her squeeze off 3 shots that made his own pattern look like a toddler with a crayon. He didn't say another word for the rest of his session. That night, Dawson couldn't sleep. It wasn't nerves, wasn't caffeine. It was the silence, that Shiloh kind of silence, heavy, weighted, like there was something left unsaid and too big to ignore. He sat in his apartment with his laptop open, a legal pad beside him, and the box of .308 she'd accepted earlier that morning still sitting on the table. She hadn't used it, just took it, nodded, and left it beside her rifle bag as if to say, "I don't need it, but I see you trying." He'd never met anyone like her, and he'd grown up around service members. His uncle was a Navy diver, his grandfather flew Hueys in Nam. But Shiloh Marks? She was something else. So he started digging. At first, nothing. Just old blog posts from gun forums, speculation about an unnamed female shooter from the early 2000s. One thread from 2011 said something about the Lady Phantom on a deep recon mission in Southeast Asia post 9/11. But no proof, just ghost stories and blurry photos, always from behind, always too distant to confirm. Then he stumbled on a Marine archive link, half-broken, full of missing indexes and paywalled scans. He brute-forced his way through, used cached PDFs, old web crawlers, even some FOIA-requested summaries someone had published years ago. Finally, he found something. March 3, 2002, Operation Ridge Glass. Region: Disputed Territory, Afghanistan border. Unit: 1st Marine Recon, attached to Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC. Notes: Insertion required long-range marksmanship under duress. Primary shooter identified only as Marks. 1 casualty recovered from 400 meters. Shooter declined commendation. Mission files partially redacted. He stared at the screen, scrolled, screenshot it just in case. Then went further. Same name, different operations. 1998, Kosovo, a black site. Then a third, this time from Panama, mid-90s. Not even a full report, just a supply requisition tagged Marks, Sniper Overwatch. That was it. No photo, no bio, not even a full name. She'd been erased. No, he thought, she erased herself. The next morning, Dawson showed up early, earlier than usual. Mitch had just unlocked the front door when he walked in. "Back again already?" Mitch asked, raising a brow. Dawson nodded. "I've got questions." Mitch grunted. "Then you've already messed up." Dawson paused. "What do you mean?" Mitch looked at him. "You don't ask Shiloh Marks questions. You earn answers, one at a time." "She served in 3 theaters across 20 years, Dawson said quietly. "I found records." "No, you found rumors," Mitch corrected. "There's a difference. You want facts? Watch her stance. Watch her reload. That's all the truth you'll get. And honestly, it's more than enough." Dawson stepped back, nodding slightly. He waited. 6:44 a.m. Like clockwork. Her truck pulled in. Same one. Matte green, rusted bumper, American flag decal worn to a shadow. She stepped out slow, coffee in one hand, range bag in the other. Walked past Dawson with a nod. He didn't speak, just nodded back. That day, he didn't try to ask anything. He just took the lane beside hers and shot, quietly, deliberately, letting his presence speak for itself. And about halfway through their second volley, she finally turned to him. 400, she said. He blinked. What? The mission you're trying to research, she clarified. Wasn't 350, 400. Wind shift, maybe 3 clicks north or maybe 3 clicks right. Depends if you're counting terrain or guilt. Dawson's mouth opened slightly. But the file said... She cut him off. The file wasn't there. I wrote it in my memory. That's where the real record lives. And then she went back to shooting. For the first time, Dawson didn't return fire after she spoke. He just stared forward, finger off the trigger, barrel downrange. Not frozen, anchored. Something about the way she'd said it. I wrote it in my memory. Like a confession made with no emotion, because there was none left to spend on it. Shiloh kept shooting. The same rhythm, same breath, same grip. But now Dawson heard more in the silence between shots, not emptiness. History. That was the day the others stopped calling her ma'am and started calling her Marks, not disrespectfully, like a title, like you'd say doc or chief. Even Petty stopped talking so much. He still showed up, first one in, last one out, but now he brought extra brass bags and swept his own lane. A week ago he'd left his rifle out while hitting the vending machine. Now he locked it up between sessions. The woman 2 lanes over had shown him what respect actually looked like. And slowly, they all started to change. Mitch noticed it first. Range discipline's tighter this month, he said aloud one morning, sipping his coffee. The clerk behind the desk looked up. You think it's because of the new RSO guidelines? Mitch just smirked. Nope, it's her. Shiloh didn't teach, not officially, not even intentionally. But every movement she made taught them something, how to walk with purpose, how to load with presents, how to shut the hell up when there was nothing worth saying. It was a quiet boot camp running 6 days a week, and the only drill instructor never raised her voice once. One day, she didn't shoot at all. She came in same time, same gear, signed her name, Marks, in that slow, careful handwriting, and took lane 12. But instead of pulling her rifle from the bag, she sat down, opened the thermos, sipped slow, then she pulled something else out. A photo. It was small, curled at the corners, looked like it had been stashed in a jacket pocket for 20 years and forgotten until today. On it, 6 Marines, mud-covered, laughing. In the middle, a younger Shiloh, no sunglasses, no hat, just wide eyes and the kind of grin you didn't fake. Dawson caught a glimpse as he passed behind her. He paused. "That you?" he asked, voice low. Shiloh looked at the photo, then at him. What gave it away? "The smirk," he said. She actually laughed. Just once. Dry. Almost surprised. He sat beside her. Not too close. Just close enough. "Where was it taken?" he asked. "Doesn't matter," she said. "All but 2 of them are gone now." Dawson nodded slowly. "I'm guessing not from old age." She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Instead, she said something he didn't expect. "They used to call me Locksight, not because I never missed. Because I never fired without knowing where every other teammate was." Dawson tilted his head. "Situational awareness?" "No," she said. "Accountability." She stared down at the photo again. They called us ghosts, but ghosts don't carry the weight of who they couldn't save. That hit. Hard. For a long while, neither of them said anything. Eventually, she slid the photo back into her bag, pulled out her rifle, checked the chamber, loaded slowly. Then she paused, turned. "You still want to be the best?" she asked. Dawson blinked. "I don't know." "Good," she said. "Because if you did know, I'd tell you you're already lost." Then she settled behind the rifle and fired the first shot of the day. Saturday came like any other. Same dawn haze, same early shuffle of boots on gravel, same thermos steam drifting above the bench as Shiloh loaded her first mag. Only this time, someone followed her in. He wasn't young, wasn't loud either. But he walked like someone who used to be both. Tall, lean, still squared at the shoulders, even though his coat was civilian. Black fleece, hiking boots, a plain watch with the kind of scratched face you only get from earning time instead of counting it. Dawson noticed him first, not because he made a scene, but because Shiloh paused. It was subtle. She'd just chambered around. But when the door clicked open and his boots hit the concrete, she froze. Mid-breath, like a reflex, like her body remembered something before her mind could catch up. The man walked straight toward her lane, stopping a few feet behind her. "Still favor the left eye," he said, not unkindly. Shiloh turned, slowly, didn't smile. "Didn't expect to see you here, Cross?" Dawson blinked. "Cross?" The man nodded. "Didn't expect to come. Then again, didn't expect you to still be shooting?" "I'm not shooting," she said. "I'm remembering." He looked down at the bench, the same battered thermos, the same rag, the rifle cleaned to precision. He gave a slight smile. "Some things don't change." "No," she replied, "but people do." Cross exhaled slowly. "They said you disappeared." "I didn't," she said. "I just stopped explaining myself." Dawson shifted closer, careful not to interrupt. Mitch had caught the vibe, too. He was lingering near the wall, hands off his clipboard, watching like a man who knew not to step into history while it was unfolding. Cross looked at the rifle. "Still custom-built?" Shiloh nodded. "Every part, every scar." He looked back at her. "You were the best we had." She didn't react. "Even after the mountain," he said. That made her flinch, just slightly. Cross lowered his voice. I read the report, what they let me see anyway. Said you stayed behind. Cover fire for 6 minutes straight. 2 evac birds. No spotter. I had a spotter, she said. Cross frowned. I thought... He didn't make it, she said, but he was still my spotter. Silence. Heavy. I thought about reaching out, he admitted. I wouldn't have answered, she replied matter-of-fact. He nodded. Yeah, I figured. There was a long pause, a kind of ceasefire neither of them acknowledged, but both observed. Then Cross stepped forward, reached into his coat, pulled out something small. It was an old recon patch, weathered. The threadbare kind you don't wear, you carry. He held it out to her. She stared at it, didn't take it. You always hated ceremony, he said with a wry smile. I hated being a symbol for people who weren't there, she corrected. Cross nodded. Then, to everyone's surprise, she reached out and placed her hand gently over his. Thanks, she said quietly, but I've already got mine. He looked confused. She tapped her temple. Right where it belongs. He chuckled softly, still sharp. Still here, she replied. Then she turned back to her bench, picked up her rifle, loaded 1 round, and fired it with a clarity that rang through the concrete like a bell no one had the words to name. The final shot echoed longer than it should have. Not in sound, Shiloh's rifle was too precise for theatrics, but in presence. Everyone on the line felt it, even the ones pretending not to watch, even the rookies who didn't know her name yet. Dawson exhaled slow. Cross stepped back without a word, nodding once before disappearing through the exit without waiting for a goodbye. Just like her. He understood when not to speak. The silence after that wasn't empty. It was reverent. That's when Mitch made a decision. After hours when the shooters were gone and the lanes swept clean, he walked out with a screwdriver in one hand and a brass plaque in the other. No fanfare. No approval needed. He mounted it above lane 12, right into the wood above the firing bench, small, just big enough to catch the eye. It didn't say hero, didn't say legend. It said, Lane 12, reserved, until she's done. Shiloh never acknowledged it, never asked, never mentioned it, but she never shot at another lane again. And somehow, everyone just knew. Over the next few months, the range changed, not overnight, but gradually, like frost melting off old habits. Dawson came in early every Saturday, same lane, next to hers, not to impress, just to learn. Petty started bringing new guys, not to show off, but to shut them up. Watch her, don't speak, just watch. Even Mitch softened. He started putting extra chairs out behind her bench, quiet ones, so folks could observe without crowding. And every so often, Shiloh would say something, just a line, just enough to stick. Check the wind inside your chest before you check the wind on the range. If you're not breathing right, you're not aiming right. Every bullet you send has your name on it. Make sure it deserves to fly. She never smiled when she said these things, but the guys listening, they never forgot. One morning, Dawson came in late. Storm had knocked out traffic signals. Roads were a mess. He showed up 20 minutes past open, thinking he'd miss her session. But lane 12 was empty. No rifle bag, no thermos, just a folded piece of paper tucked beneath a .308 casing, placed dead center on the bench. Mitch handed it to him without a word. Inside, the note read, It's your range now. Keep it clean. Shoot straight. Stay quiet. Shiloh. Dawson didn't speak. He just nodded. And from that day on, Lane 12 stayed reserved. Not for a person, for a presence. For every Marine who never asked to be thanked. For every ghost who still remembered how to breathe. For the kind of legend that didn't need a book. Just one recruit who knew how to pay attention. So now I ask you, have you ever met a Shiloh? Someone whose silence taught more than words ever could? Someone who never bragged, never needed to, but left a mark deeper than a medal ever could? Drop their name in the comments. Let their story live again. Because at Unsung Heroes, we believe the strongest people are often the ones who never asked to be seen. But when you do finally see them, you remember, if this story hit you in the gut, share it. Let someone else feel what you felt. And if you're still here, still listening, still remembering, then you're part of this too. Subscribe, stay with us, and watch Lane 12. There's always more to learn. We'll see you in the next one.